Look, if you want to end up 80 years old, bitter, and wondering where the hell the time went, you're on the right track. Most people aren't actually living. They're just NPCs waiting for a real life that's never coming. They're slaves to a hungry, blind urge Schopenhauer called the will. A restless itch that tells you you're never enough and you need more stuff to be happy. It's a scam. You're being played by your own biology and a society that wants you distracted. If you want to guarantee a miserable existence and effectively waste every second you've got, here are the 6 ways to do it. The first way to absolutely trash your life is to treat it like a boring waiting room. Most people spend their entire existence standing on a platform, staring down the tracks, waiting for a train that isn't even on the schedule. You know the type. Maybe you are the type. You're always about to start living. You'll be happy when the debt is paid. You'll be confident when you lose 10 pounds. You'll be yourself once you get that promotion or move to a new city. Schopenhauer called this the will to live, this blind, restless, idiotic urge that keeps us leaning into the future because the present feels like a toothache. We treat the now like a bridge we have to sprint across to get to the real stuff. But here's the cold, hard truth. The bridge is all there is. When you spend your life waiting for the good part, you're treating your only guaranteed reality like a piece of trash you can't wait to throw away. Think about the guy who works a soul-crushing 9 to 5 for 30 years. He hates the fluorescent lights, he hates the coffee, and he hates his boss. But he tells himself, it's fine because when I'm 65, I'm going to buy a boat and finally relax. He's trading the literal gold of his youth for a theoretical maybe in a future where he'll probably be too tired or too sick to even pull the starter cord on that boat. He's a ghost haunting his own life, waiting for a someday that is statistically likely to be a disappointment. He's living in anticipation, which Schopenhauer noted is the hallmark of a fool. If you're always looking at the horizon, you're going to trip over the stone right in front of your feet every single time. This isn't just about big career goals either. It's the small, everyday rot. It's the way you scroll through your phone while eating a meal, not even tasting the food, because you're looking for a video that will make you feel better than you do right now. It's the way you sit in a beautiful park, but spend the whole time thinking about the email you have to send tomorrow. You are never there. You are always somewhere else, chasing a phantom version of yourself that is supposedly happier, richer, or more relaxed. The solution to this isn't setting better goals or manifesting. It's much more ruthless than that. You have to kill the hope that the future is going to save you. You have to realize that if you can't find a way to sit in a chair and just be without itching for a distraction or a next step, then you've already lost. Schopenhauer said the present is the only point where reality and existence truly meet. Everything else is a memory or a fantasy. To get out of the waiting game, you have to stop the clock. When you're washing the dishes, don't think about the TV show you're going to watch after. Feel the water. When you're walking to the bus, don't wish you were already at work. Feel the pavement. It sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world because it requires you to stop running from yourself. You stop the waste by realizing that this mundane, boring, unspectacular moment is the main event. There is no after. There is no later. There is only this. If you don't start living in the dirt and the boredom of right now, you'll wake up at 80 and realize you spent your whole life in a terminal, waiting for a flight that took off without you decades ago. The second way to guarantee you stay miserable is to stay trapped in the upgrade cycle. This is the most addictive scam on the planet because it feels like progress, but it's actually just a treadmill designed to exhaust you. Schopenhauer nailed this when he talked about the will, that restless, hungry part of your brain that is never, ever satisfied. He described life as a pendulum that swings back and forth between 2 types of hell, the pain of wanting something you don't have and the soul-crushing boredom of finally getting it. Think about the last time you really, desperately wanted something. Maybe it was a new phone, a faster car, or a pair of sneakers that cost more than your rent. You convinced yourself that once you had that thing, the itch would finally go away. You'd be complete. You'd finally be the guy who has his life together. You worked overtime, you saved, you obsessed, and then you bought it. For the first 20 minutes, you felt like a king. By the next morning, the high started to fade. By the end of the week, that expensive piece of glass and metal was just another object on your desk. The new smell was gone, and you were already looking at the announcement for the next model. You didn't solve your unhappiness, you just pushed it back for an afternoon. Now, you're back in the pain phase, craving the next hit of dopamine. You're a donkey chasing a carrot that's duct-taped to your own forehead. This is how people waste decades. They think they're climbing a ladder, but they're actually just running in circles. Look at the guy who finally gets the dream house. He spent 10 years killing himself to afford it. 3 months after moving in, he's not walking around marveling at the crown molding. He's stressed out because the water heater broke and the neighbor's lawn looks better than his. He isn't enjoying the house. He's already upgrading his anxiety to fit the bigger space. He's right back to being dissatisfied, but now he has more bills and less time. Schopenhauer's solution is cold. He says that trying to satisfy your desires is like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. The more you feed the will, the hungrier it gets. You think you're filling a hole, but you're actually digging it deeper. To get out of this trap, you have to stop trying to win the game and just walk off the field. The fix isn't getting more stuff. It's killing the desire for the stuff in the first place. You have to look at that shiny object and realize it's a trap, a temporary distraction that will leave you hungrier than before. Real power isn't the ability to buy whatever you want. It's the ability to look at $1 billion marketing campaign and feel absolutely nothing. You stop being a slave to the upgrade when you realize that your inner world stays the same whether you're driving a rust bucket or a supercar. If you want to stop wasting your life, you have to embrace a little bit of that voluntary poverty of the mind. Stop asking, "What's next?" and start asking, "Why do I feel like I'm not enough right now?" When you stop trying to fix an internal problem with an external purchase, the pendulum finally stops swinging. You find a level of calm that doesn't depend on a bank account or a retail fix. You finally stop being a consumer and start being a person. The third way to flush your life down the drain is to turn your existence into a performance for an audience that isn't even watching. Most people don't live their lives. They manage a brand. They are more concerned with the idea of themselves in someone else's head than the actual person sitting in their own skin. Schopenhauer called this vile vanity, this desperate, pathetic need to be seen as successful, happy, or cool by people we don't even like. Think about how much of your daily stress comes from the social mirror. You're at a restaurant, and instead of tasting the food, you're angling your phone to get the perfect shot. You're at a concert, and instead of feeling the bass in your chest, you're recording a shaky video to prove you were there. You are a ghost at your own party. You've traded the substance of your life, the actual raw experience, for the shadow of it. You're like a man who is starving to death but spends all his money buying high-quality photos of bread just so his neighbors think he's eating well. Schopenhauer's take was brutal. He said that what happens in a man's own consciousness is the only thing that actually matters. Everything else, your reputation, your status, your likes, what the guy next door thinks of your car, is just a vibration in someone else's brain. It's a phantom. It has zero reality. Yet we spend 80% of our energy trying to manipulate those vibrations. We buy clothes that are uncomfortable because they look expensive. We take jobs we hate because the title sounds impressive at a high school reunion. We are literally suffocating ourselves to make sure the mask looks pretty. Look at the person who is obsessed with their public image. They spend every waking hour editing their life before they show it to the world. They're terrified of a bad photo or a wrong opinion. They leave every social interaction feeling exhausted and hollow because they weren't there. Only their representative was. They are living in a prison where the bars are made of other people's eyeballs. They've handed the keys to their happiness to a crowd of strangers who are too busy worrying about their own mirrors to even give them a second thought. The solution to this is a cold dose of reality. Nobody is thinking about you. They really aren't. Everyone is the protagonist of their own movie, and you're just a background extra in theirs. When you realize that, the social mirror shatters. You realize that your inner world, your peace of mind, your health, your own thoughts, is the only territory you truly own. Why would you trade your actual peace for a fleeting thought in a stranger's head? It's a bad trade. It's like trading a gold bar for a handful of smoke. To get out of the mirror trap, you have to start practicing internal validation. Stop asking, "How does this look?" and start asking, "How does this feel?" If you're enjoying a sunset, keep the phone in your pocket. If you're wearing an old shirt that's comfortable, don't worry about the fashion. When you stop performing, you finally start living. You find a massive, explosive sense of freedom when you realize that you don't have to be someone for everyone. You just have to be yourself for yourself. That's where the wasting stops and the actual raw power begins. The fourth way to set your life on fire and watch it burn is to keep hunting for happiness as if it's a destination, a trophy, or a permanent state of being. We've been fed a lie since birth that life is supposed to be a series of peaks, that if you just find the right person, the right job, or the right vibe, you'll eventually hit a plateau of constant joy and stay there forever. This is the ultimate scam. Schopenhauer saw through this immediately. He argued that happiness isn't a positive thing we gain. It's actually just a negative state. It's the brief, flickering moment when a specific pain or a specific want finally stops screaming at you. Think about a massive toothache. When your nerve is throbbing, that pain is the only reality in your universe. You can't think, you can't work, you can't love. Then the dentist pulls the tooth. In that first hour of numbness and relief, you feel incredible. You call that happiness. But a week later, do you wake up every morning celebrating the fact that your tooth doesn't hurt? No. You've already forgotten the relief. You've moved on to worrying about your car insurance or a text someone didn't reply to. You only notice happiness in the rearview mirror as it's fading away. If you spend your life chasing a peak experience, you are destined to live in a valley of disappointment. Look at the person who is obsessed with having the perfect wedding, the perfect vacation, or the perfect Friday night. They spend months planning, thousands of dollars investing, and hours stressing over every detail. When the event finally happens, they're so anxious about whether they're actually having fun that they end up miserable. They're looking for a high that isn't there. They're like a person trying to catch the wind with a net. They end up exhausted, empty-handed, and convinced that they just did it wrong and need to try harder next time. Schopenhauer's solution is a bucket of ice water to the face. Stop looking for the high. Stop asking the universe, "Am I happy yet?" The moment you ask that question, the answer is already no. Real peace isn't found in the moments of celebration. It's found in the quiet gaps where nothing is hurting. It's the absence of suffering. If you aren't hungry, if you aren't freezing, if you aren't in physical pain, and you aren't being hunted by an enemy, you are technically winning. But because we've been brainwashed to expect bliss, we treat peace like it's a failure. We treat okay like it's a tragedy. When you stop demanding that every moment be special, you actually start to enjoy the mundane stuff. You stop being a junkie for the next emotional hit and start becoming a master of your own contentment. The fix is to realize that the good life isn't about how much pleasure you can cram into a day. It's about how much unnecessary suffering you can remove. When you stop chasing the phantom of happiness, the pressure disappears. You stop being a victim of your own expectations. You find a level of steady, grounded calm that no bad day can touch. You realize that you don't need a miracle to have a good life. You just need to stop waiting for one. That's how you stop wasting your time and start actually existing. The fifth way to ensure your life is a hollow wreck is to be absolutely terrified of being alone with your own thoughts. We live in an era where treated like an emergency that needs to be killed immediately. Most people can't even walk from their front door to their car without plugging their ears with a podcast, a playlist, or a phone call. They are terrified of the dead air because that's when the truth starts to leak in. Schopenhauer was brutal about this. He said that a person's mental worth is directly measured by how much they can endure being by themselves. If you can't stand your own company, why should anyone else? Think about the last time you were truly alone. No phone, no TV, no background music, no productive task to distract you. For most people, within 90 seconds, the itch starts. Their hand reaches for the screen like a junkie looking for a fix. They feel an overwhelming sense of boredom, which Schopenhauer described as a tame longing that eventually turns into a desperate agony. We flee from ourselves because we're scared of what we'll find in the basement of our own minds, the regrets, the realizations, and the cold fact that most of what we do doesn't matter. Look at the person who stays in a toxic, soul-crushing relationship just because the thought of a quiet house on a Saturday night feels like a death sentence. They'd rather be insulted, ignored, or drained by a partner they don't even like than face the void of an empty room. They are beggars for noise. They trade their dignity for the sound of someone else's voice, even if that voice is telling them they're worthless. They are prisoners of their own boredom. They think they are social or loving, but they are actually just refugees running away from the person they are stuck with for eternity, themselves. Schopenhauer's take was that solitude is the only place where a man is truly free. When you are with others, you are constantly limiting yourself, editing your thoughts, managing your face, and playing a role. You are a fragmented version of yourself. It's only in the silence that you are whole. To waste your life, you avoid that wholeness at all costs. You keep the TV on while you sleep. You scroll through social media until your eyes burn. You jump from one crowded place to the next, drowning out the inner voice with overpriced stuff and meaningless small talk about the weather or the game. The solution to this isn't joining a club or getting out more. It's the exact opposite. You have to learn to sit still. When you stop running to the crowd for validation, you stop being a beggar. You find out that you are actually a pretty interesting person once you stop trying to drown yourself out. The sixth way to effectively rot from the inside out is to convince yourself that you are a finished product and that your misery is just the way it is. This is the ultimate surrender. You've decided that your character, your flaws, and your bad luck are a fixed mountain range you're stuck climbing until you drop dead. You blame your DNA, your parents, or the vibe of the city you live in for why you're stuck in a grey fog of dissatisfaction. Schopenhauer had a name for this. He called it the will taking total control over the intellect. You've stopped being the driver and started being the passenger in a car that's headed straight for a brick wall. Think about the person who says, "I'm just a negative person, I can't help it," or "I've always been a procrastinator, it's just my nature." They use these labels like a comfortable cage. They've built a prison out of their own excuses and then complain about the lack of a view. They act like their personality is a stone statue that was carved 20 years ago and can never be chipped away. They stay on the couch, scrolling through the lives of people who actually took a swing at something, and tell themselves, "Must be nice to have that kind of luck." They've resigned from their own life before the first half is even over. This delusion is the belief that there is a destination where you'll finally be fixed, or conversely, that because you haven't reached it, you are fundamentally broken. We treat our lives like a GPS route where we're just waiting for the voice to say, "You have arrived." But in the world of the will, there is no arrival. There is only the movement. If you spend your life waiting to become someone else, you are effectively murdering the person you are right now. Schopenhauer believed that while our basic will, our core drives and urges, is hard to change, our intellect can rise above it. You aren't your moods. You aren't your impulses. You aren't the voice in your head that tells you everything is a waste of time. You are the observer of those things. To get out of the delusion, you have to stop being the victim of your own biology. You have to start looking at your thoughts like they belong to a stranger. Instead of saying, "I am miserable," you start saying, "I am noticing a feeling of misery passing through my mind." That tiny bit of distance is where your freedom lives. You stop the waste by realizing that the destination is a lie. There is no version of you in the future that is cured of being human. There is only the work you do right now to quiet the restless will and find a level of calm that doesn't depend on whether you win or lose. If this hit a little too close to home, drop a comment below. Which of these 6 traps is currently eating your life alive? Let's talk about it in the dirt. Don't wait for later. Later is a ghost. Do it now. See you in the next one.